It's not a bird, it's not a plane, it's Superhero Slate. It's a modern podcast where we talk about everything that's great, like movies, TV, superheroes. It's Superhero Slate. Oh yeah.
Hello everyone and welcome to Superhero Slate, the show where we run down the latest superhero entertainment news.
We love TV, movies, and superheroes, so let's talk it all out.
My name is Chris Dillard.
And my name is Mike Royer.
Ooh, and this week we're embiggening our first look at Miss Marvel.
I mean, if you take some frame-by-frame screenshots, theoretically
Yes.
there may be some embiggening.
we did some zooming. We did some zooming, that's for sure. We're going to kick this episode off by diving into Marvel's release slate circa 2004.
2004.
You're going to love this. You're going to love this. This is my favorite thing in the notes today. The Batman is coming to streaming next month for those 5 people who didn't go watch it in the theater so far.
So fast.
And more.
Yeah, if you're listening to this right now, you survived the holiday known as St. Patrick's Day.
Yes.
And I wanted to bring this up just because I feel like every year St. Patrick's Day rolls around out here in LA, or at least the West Coast, somebody's always saying like, oh, nobody celebrates it out here. And then there's usually a chart shared, kind of like the distribution of kind of Irish throughout the United States. Uh-huh. And LA is like nowhere even, like, I don't even think we're in like the top 20, 30 like cities. We're like nowhere close. I think there's like one legitimate Irish bar out here, and like all of the Irish people in LA can fill it, which doesn't say a lot for a city this size. But I was going to ask you, I think Louisville is like number 3 or 4 in the country for Irish people. So what was it like out there on Thursday? Or was it Thursday? Yeah, Thursday, your birthday.
Yeah, Thursday. So St. Patrick's Day is my birthday. So I actually look at it through a little different lens, I think, than everybody else does. But we do have lots. I could probably throw a rock and hit like an Irish bar or like pub kind of scene, and we have a place called the Irish Rover. It's a big place. They actually open up early on St. Patrick's Day. Very authentic food, very authentic experience there. They don't dye the Ohio River green because it's already pretty nasty, but I feel if they could, they would here. That's how big it is. But they celebrate, usually they do the parades. We have actually downtown parade the weekend before the holiday. So their celebrating was a week before that. For myself, I celebrated last night by playing Halo, doing a Halo LAN party like I did back in December or January for until like 3 in the morning. And we have a rule, especially on my birthday, if you the best player on the team has to take a shot after the round. And this got so good. I had people online, friends I went to college with, they were playing with us online, actually doing it and then sending videos of themselves taking the shots at their place because everybody was in on this weekend. So
yeah, it's funny because you admitted to me before we started recording that you were a little congested today.
Yes.
And some people will just think that you're hungover because you do sound like the congestion makes you sound like a little bit kind of like slower and sluggish. So it just sounds like you won too many games of Halo last night and you had to drink too much.
I did do pretty good. I'm not gonna lie. We didn't win a lot, but I did do pretty good. But we still had fun, and that's what we did. We had my wife made green cookies in the number, and then laid them out the number 35 for how old I am. So that's been fun. And then my coworkers know I have a sweet tooth and for gimmicky snacks, so they all compiled a bunch of snacks that they could find that they thought were gimmicky themselves and brought them in that day. So that was really, really fun.
There's a gimmicky snack that I'm on the lookout for. I think it's the brand C4 that makes the energy drinks that are like Sour Patch Kids or Warheads related.
So C4 I think is Starburst, isn't it? Isn't the other one?
What is it? No, Ghost is the one. Ghost is the one I'm
yeah.
thinking of. They have apparently there's a Swedish fish flavor out there somewhere in the world. So I'm looking for that one, Swedish Fish Ghost energy drink, because I gotta try it. So, that's just how it goes.
It's funny you mention that. I've spent all the past 2 weeks looking for the hard Mountain Dews, right? That are
coming out. Yeah, those are just starting to hit shelves.
Yeah, I was not able to find any. However, today I went to a local chain. I don't know, it might be a local. It's a national chain called Witch, and I was able to sample their specific special Mountain Dew flavor, Mike. Mountain Dew Vibe.
Not hard though, right? This is
No,
just
it's
a
just regular
normal.
Mountain Dew, regular Mountain Dew Vibe, and so even Witch, like you said, not on our bingo card for getting this its own unique Mountain Dew flavor. It's lemonade and Mountain Dew together, which I have to say probably one of my favorite ones thus far.
Hey, good job, Whoever
it's
brokered that deal with Pepsi, good job.
I would say it's probably 3/4 lemonade and like a quarter Mountain Dew. It's lighter than I think regular Mountain Dew. It's not as heavy, so I have to say that would be like a summer go to if they had it out in the wild. I hope they do bottle it so you can give it a try. Or I don't know. Do you have Witch out there in California?
Occasionally you'll come across one.
Yeah, I've never been to one until the past like 5 years, so I was very excited to sample that on lunch day, and I got to give it a recommendation, Mike. A big thumbs up for the Mountain Dew Vibe on this end. But yeah, I'm gonna go ahead and let you get into these next two films you're talking about here, because I honestly would not have pegged you to be watching these, especially this time of year, and now I've got to know the story why Underworld 1 and 2 are sitting in our show notes at the top of the list here.
Yeah, so I was just kind of looking for, something to watch. I'm always trying to fill in kind of like these pop culture gaps from my past. And, Underworld is just sitting there right for the picking. Luckily, almost all of them are streaming on Peacock. And, Chris, I know you like to Google things and look things up while I'm talking, but without looking things up, guess which of the Underworld movies, 1 through 4, is not streaming on Peacock? Just real quick, throw it out. What's the most logical answer you think in your head is? 1 through 4.
Logically,
which one is...
I would think it's 4, but I'm going to lean into saying is 2 not on there?
It is 2, and it makes no sense. I'm sure somebody might be able to dive in and go like, oh, it's technically a different distributor or production company for the second one, so that's why it's not on Peacock. Whatever.
That's weird as hell.
But the second one is on Tubi, which is a free ad-supported streaming service, and you actually don't even need to make an account to stream on there. So I've watched number 1 and number 2, so the first one on Peacock and the second one on Tubi, unfortunately.
To be or not to be.
But you can like really kind of see like the leather coat, latex inspiration that came from like the Matrix, right? In the late 90s, early 2000s that probably got a lot of this movie greenlit to begin with. But I'm actually having a more entertaining time than I thought I would, at least starting off this Underworld franchise with the first 2. I started the third one up, but I haven't finished it yet, so I'm not going to talk about that one just yet.
Well, 3, and I'm only going to say this, is the one that doesn't have Kate Beckinsale as the lead. It's like in the past, correct?
Oh, I'm not 100%. There does seem to be like a mysterious time shift, at least within the first 15 or 20 minutes. But like, I'm still early days on that third one, so I'll report back. But I have to say, I'm pleasantly surprised with some of the lore that they've kind of added to like the werewolf kind of vampire stories. And there's over the top action. There's some wire work. There's like some good, really practical effects. And it's like this nice, like sweet period, like in the aughts, where special effects were just starting to get a little bit cheaper, but it was still smart to do a lot of practical effects and build sets. So you still see a lot of great prop work mixed with some special effects. And surprisingly, some of the stuff still holds up. So the second one is a delight because there's more creature work. There's a lot more like outlandish kind of looking like vampire creatures, more kind of werewolf people in suits and like puppets on walls. So I have to say I'm actually having a pretty good time. This is kind of like the perfect style of franchise to watch maybe like while you're on your phone or doing something else. But man, the cinematographer, the color grading would put like Zack Snyder to shame when it comes to making something desaturated and dark, because man, they are really cranking up the blues, really ratcheting down like the warm colors. It is like the moodiest thing I've ever seen.
Yeah, well, I'll always remember, again, it's blue, gray, and black in my head, right, when I think about this. And, like, pre-Twilight Michael Sheen. like just chewing scenery, right? Like as like one of the vampires, and then what Bill Nye as well. Is he's in at least in the first one, right?
Yeah.
So I mean, I have vague memories. Like I blended in with like Resident Evil was coming out in this time, Blade 2. Was it Van Helsing? I think was also in this era.
Yeah.
Kate Beckinsale was in that. Like I just blend them all together. Sometimes I'm like, I remember watching the first. I've seen the first 3. I've not seen them there's actually 5. I've not seen the other 2 at the end of the franchise. So.
And I love how they blend some kind of like really cheesy, like practical, like science fiction, like weaponry too. Like in the first movie, they find out that the werewolves are shooting bullets at the vampires that have like UV liquid in them, and then so the vampires retaliate by getting like liquid silver bullets. So there's like a literal arms race between the Lycans and the vampires. It's just all good fun, and I'm having a good time watching them. So I'll probably report back maybe after I watch a couple more, maybe when I finish up the whole saga. But yeah, it's nice to get that little check mark off of the pop culture when vampires were still kind of on the rise at their apex, I would say, during like this Underworld franchise.
That was all Kate Beckinsale was for like 5 years. So,
exactly, and that's kind of, I mean, probably all she is still right now. To be honest, if you like look back at the quantity of her career, right, it's going to be the Underworld movies for sure.
Underworld is what it's tied to, and Click, right? She was in Click, wasn't she?
But if I had to take the hardest of hard turns away from the Underworld franchise, it's this new series that is streaming on Hulu/Fox called Welcome to Flatch, which is an adaptation of a BBC series called This Country, and it's just basically about the lives of small town folks in the middle of the country. So in this US told version, it's a fictional town in Ohio, but the show is actually shot in North Carolina because North Carolina is starting to get some of their tax breaks, kind of they're cranking them up to get more productions from Hollywood and North Carolina. So the advantage, I would say, of the show shooting in North Carolina is they pick the set very, very well. Like if you don't know, you would really feel like this is a legitimate small town in the middle of the country, which adds a lot more authenticity to it. And the wardrobe department is really on top of it. All of these characters really, really look like they're from a town with a population of like, I think it's 1,500. Like every episode starts with the current population of the town. And I think it's like 1,533 or something like that. But it's a comedy, and it kind of has that fake, documentary style, much like The Office or Modern Family or Parks and Rec. But as those shows progress, they kind of ditch that kind of real documentary style. So who knows if Welcome to Flatch could eventually do that. But it stars Sean William Scott, which we all remember as Stifler from the American Pie movies. Aya Cash, I think it's Aya Cash, who was the killer Nazi superhero in the most recent season of The Boys. She stars in it as well. But I just think it's really, really funny. I would say it's a more authentic portrayal of the middle of the country where we both grew up, right? And it kind of has that Parks and Rec vibe to it as well. But Parks and Rec was all shot out here, so you can kind of see a lot of more of like the West Coast kind of foliage and density from Parks and Rec, even though that's still an amazing show. So yeah, if you live in the middle of the country and you want to watch something that really kind of feels like home, watch Welcome to Flatch. The first 7 episodes are on Hulu right now.
Not to be confused with Fletch, the Chevy Chase movie franchise.
Exactly.
So just don't do that, because when you type that in, I'm like, is he trying to tell me to watch Chevy Chase movie?
No.
Or it's like a remake? I don't know what's going on.
Flatch.
Okay. On the flip side, we swapped places from last week. On Monday, I was able to watch Turning Red, and you were able to check out the Adam Project this week. This weekend, right? Was it yesterday?
Yep. Yeah. Just the other day, yeah.
Yeah, I couldn't remember when you texted. So the week before, we Mike had seen Turning Red, I'd seen the Adam Project. So now we got to go through there. I've been talking about Turning Red with my coworkers because I have a lot of women and moms specifically in my department at work who I have been seeing. They've been asking me, like, why is everybody mad at Turning Red? And the vocal minority is like, oh my gosh, it's teaching children to be rebellious and not do what their parents say. This movie is not like that at all. Like, this is, I think I told you, this movie is not for me. It is for young teenage girls or women who went through this. They get it. I didn't relate as well, but that's okay. I know it's not for me. But by the time the second half of the movie kicked in, and the mysticism and the red panda ness, and at one point it's like a kaiju movie. I think I told you. It gets really more fun and more interesting towards the back half of the film. And I'm trying to find the words to say here. I'm not knocking it. It's a good movie. Not my favorite Pixar film, but I know it's not for me. So if you have any inclination to watch it, feel free to go ahead. It's on Disney Plus for free. But I think it's like you said, it's great animation. They have a very unique style of how the characters look. It feels like an evolution maybe from the Luca designs a little bit, as they kind of move forward. And yeah, I mean it's not a musical, that's for sure. For Disney movies. So I don't know what to say about this. I had a good time, Mike. I mean, I think I echo your sentiments from last week. So just saying I agree with what you said. So
well, speaking of a good time, I got around to watching The Adam Project, like you were saying, and I had a wonderful time. It was great. I kept seeing things all last week where people were saying this younger version of Ryan Reynolds that they cast in the movie is just this amazing depiction of what, at least his character, how he brings himself around in the world now would be when he was a kid, and they nail it, right? I had a great time. I love the writing of the movie. Sean Levy, who directed the film, is going to be taking up the mantle for Deadpool 3, right? So I was kind of looking at it from that angle too, of like, oh, how is he going to handle maybe more of a franchise that I'm more familiar with? And I have to say, overall, it was great. You told me to kind of look out for maybe some cheaper budget CGI, I think maybe towards the end of the film. And unfortunately, like the last set piece that takes place inside of this interior does look a little cheap, but overall I was enjoying the story enough to where I could kind of really just ignore it.
I think it was, to me, it was the de-aging effect is...
Oh, the kind of the deep fake part of it,
which was like, it's like, oh, this is kind of like, I would even say like Mandalorian season 2 finale kind of roughness. But it doesn't ruin the film. It's just that I was like, it took me out for a minute. I'm like, oh, we're watching a movie.
Yeah. Luckily for a movie where it's about like time travel and you get to meet characters at different points in their lives, there's not a whole lot of that going on. It's really just one character. You could kind of look back at this time in cinema where it's just like, oh, remember when we were just starting to do deep fakes and everything kind of looked a little uncanny. But of course now everything is terrifying and you can just recreate a person in a computer. So this will be one of those movies that we'll probably have a little bit of an example of, but it was great. It was an extremely sentimental ending, which I think worked really, really well. I would say I was welling up a little bit, trying to hold back some tears, but I would love to see more of this franchise, and I don't see why you wouldn't. This really kind of seems like something that you franchise. I wouldn't let this amazing casting of Ryan Reynolds and this kid go to waste. I want to see more of them on the screen. I think it would be great. So looking forward to hopefully a sequel being announced for the Adam Project. I mean, they wrapped it up really well at the end, but I mean, it's all, it's time travel at the end of the day. You can easily kind of dig that, mechanism back out of its grave and, start the movie back up if you had to. But I had a great time. I'm surprised. Like when my wife and I were done watching the movie, we were both just kind of like, so that movie was good, right? And I was like, this kind of seemed like a movie that maybe should have gone to theaters, right? Like usually when you watch a Netflix movie, you're just like, oh, okay, yeah, it was fine. I'm glad I didn't have to pay for it or like, drive down to the theater or, waste my money to watching it. But it's just like, I think I would have spent $10-12 to watch this in a theater. I thought it was that good.
I think it's okay. I don't think it's that good. To me, I saw the cracks of Netflix. I think, like you said, you can tell there are sets. There's like 4 sets they use for this whole movie, right? Like, I think maybe if they knew they were going to go to theater, they could have a little more budget to polish out some of this a little bit more, probably.
That's true. They probably could have because they knew they could have gotten some box office revenue.
Yeah. So I think it's a damned if you do, damned if you don't thing. Because I think if it would have been in there, like, not as good as a movie theater movie because of, it's Netflix budget. But if they knew they were going to put it in the theater, then they probably could have had more money and polished it just a little more to get that last extra mile out of it.
Yeah.
So
now I just need to get around to watching Free Guy to kind of really kind of complete the modern Sean Levy kind of a duo of films to see how Deadpool's really gonna crank out. But I was pleasantly surprised.
I would say I wouldn't want them to make a sequel, but like maybe another movie that involves both of these as a young and an older Ryan Reynolds. Like I guess the story of the characters is what made this movie great, right? It wasn't the technology, it wasn't the idea of the time travel. It was the story and the character relationships. But I'd like to see them we could do another movie that possibly involves time travel. I don't know. Maybe he clones a younger version of himself or something. A whole different sci-fi concept where it's that kid and Ryan Reynolds together. Because like you said, they were the highlight of the film throughout the whole thing.
Yeah. I mean, I know it's a little bit done to death, especially on Netflix recently, but it would be funny to see those two characters stuck in like a Groundhog's Day type of situation. But that's basically Russian Doll and
Freaky Friday.
Not Freaky Friday.
No, I would say, but we could do a Freaky Friday.
Yeah, that's true. They could do like a Freaky Friday where they switch bodies or something like that. So yeah, there's something that either way, that kid is going to have a pretty good career moving forward. He's got the chops.
Yeah. Put him in Deadpool 3 as a young Deadpool, I say. But all right, let's kick it off. Let's do some show notes here. So first and foremost, we're going to take a trip back to the real early 2000s Marvels. Someone on Twitter was able to find a picture at the Marvel Film Slate. And this isn't Marvel Cinematic Universe. This is just Marvel properties getting turned into film in 2004, probably a little 2003. So you're going to look at this and you're going to recognize some of these names right away. You're like, oh, 2004 had Thomas Jane's The Punisher, Spider-Man 2, Man-Thing, which went to the Sci-Fi Network. It did come out, and Blade Trinity, which sucked. Don't watch it. Then you see Elektra, Fantastic Four, and then is that an Iron Man in there, Mike?
Yep, right behind that cosplayer's head.
2005's Iron Man. Do you remember watching that? I don't. We must have missed that. 2006 had X-Men 3, Namor. I didn't even know Namor was on the slate. Mike, that's blowing my mind here. And Ghost Rider, which Nick Cage. So that this here was just an insight into like what they were thinking and how they were just pulling properties left and right back then, just mining them all over the place, in different studios as well. Like a lot of these were Fox or Sony or whatever.
Yeah, it really makes me wonder who made this little kind of standy little billboard that you could take a picture in front of, right? Because there was no studio unification. So, Fantastic Four movies, I believe those were over at Fox, right? And then the Spider-Man movies were at Sony. So you wouldn't see them coming together making synergizing on marketing materials. So somebody whipped this up probably from like forums and like things that were kind of in pre-production and things like that.
It looks like it's a film convention, like one of those like CinemaCons kind of thing. Maybe Marvel had their own CinemaCon, because what's interesting isn't those. It's when you get to below the upcoming releases without a release date. Spider-Man 3, yep, we saw it. Silver Surfer, the movie, which we actually know was merged into Fantastic Four 2. Fury, a Nick Fury movie, Mike, that we never got. I believe the one behind Spider-Man's butt is Daredevil 2. Based on the font. Dethlok? Did we even know who Dethlok was in 2004? Do you even know who he is right now? No. And then the old classic Captain America font there, which we know eventually came to Marvel Studios in 2010. Yeah. There's one we're missing behind there. My guess is maybe a Hulk or a Thor maybe behind.
Yeah, possibly. My favorite thing about this photo, though, is the cosplayer in the front, because it just goes to show you how far we've come in Spider-Man specific cosplays. Because the kind of the main thing you do now when you do a Spider-Man cosplay is you put on what's called like a face shield, which is kind of like almost like a plastic hockey mask that goes underneath your Spider-Man mask to round out the face, so it just doesn't look like wearing pantyhose on your face with a Spider-Man print on it. So even though this is a very good costume, the face shield hadn't really been invented yet because nobody was really 3D printing, which made it a lot easier to do that kind of stuff. So And this is crazy traveling. This is around the time the first Underworld movie was kind of in production and getting ready. So this is wow, this is great.
It looks to also be, if you kind of look to the back right, you see Spider-Man 2 poster right over right by X-Men 3. X-Men 3 didn't even have a name at this point, which is crazy to think about.
Yeah.
And
Little did the nerds know back then how wonderful things were about to get for them, right?
Right. It was going to get darker before the dawn. Let's be honest, because they thought they were going to get an X-Men Origins movie that was good. They didn't know what was going to happen there. But I will tell you, the only characters we've not seen on screen are Namor, I believe, is the only one in film and TV, and Dethlok was technically in the Agents of S.H.I.E.L.D. show. And Fury, of course, was there. So that's just crazy that we've still not got Namor, 20 years later. Rumors are Black Panther 2 maybe, but I'm excited. It's fun reliving these things, because I'm like, I remember watching these and being very excited. Like, I know how bad it is, but I remember being so thrilled when Daredevil was coming out with like Ben Affleck and Jennifer Garner. I'm like, oh, Daredevil, yes, this is a superhero guy. I know he's cool, and like I still watch it. I'm like, oh, that's awesome. It's got this '90s new metal soundtrack. Isn't that is what everybody has to have to be cool? And then in hindsight, god damn.
Yeah, I would say one of the best things that has come out of the MCU in general, and everybody can complain, that Hollywood's kind of turned totally towards like big comic book blockbuster movies or whatever. But one thing that's been really, really great about all this is that it's really, really proven that you can take, something very nerdy that used to be considered like not cool, right? And if you just treat it with respect and adapt it properly, you can turn it into a lot of money, right? So these big ballin' executives, who would never be accused of being like nerdy or dorks, right? Yeah. Now they can be like, oh no, we can adapt your nerdy thing. I'll make a lot of money out of it. So
yeah. Well, I mean, there's stuff that like if you go to the second photo, I think is interesting because you have Jennifer Garner as Elektra, Fantastic Four, and then Iron Man. But it's like a CG Iron Man from like the 90s when like his armor was just pure 90s looking, right? Like all the your muscles have muscles.
Yeah, you can see his abs through the armor.
Yeah, and it's just a shining glitter. Like they were just milking everything they could back then to get it out. And thank God they were able to hold back, show some restraint, put Jon Favreau to kickstart the MCU, and they've had a pretty successful run since then. So, but it's just wild. Like I cringe thinking about myself back then as a young child, but I definitely remember most of these coming out. And if you don't get a chance to, I think Main Thing is it's still one of those movies. It's like it went to the Sci-Fi Network, or whatever. I think it was called Sci-Fi back then. Still, so if you don't get a chance to watch it, I mean, I don't know where that would be streaming at, but that's definitely one that got made. That people are like, oh, they never made a Man Thing. Yeah, they did, and you forgot about it. Do you remember? Well, we're going to talk about it here in a little bit. Jessica Jones, her friend, what's her name?
Hellcat?
Yes. The actress who played Hellcat is in the Man Thing movie from 2005 because I filmed it in Australia.
Oh, all right.
Just a little fun fact there. I think we talked about when Jessica Jones was out, but I was just bringing it up. So that link's in our notes, and I also retweeted it on Twitter. So Valdan, VALDAN, you can check that out. And let us know what your cringy 2000s moments were. For sure. So Spider-Man No Way Home, they released it on digital early this week. Do you know why? Do you want to know why?
Why is that?
Because the Blu-ray leaked. People got a hold of the Blu-ray, put online. This has been everywhere. There are people doing behind-the-scenes stuff. Our friend of the show, Patrick, he sent me earlier a video clip of Tom Holland literally doing his own stunts on the scene, like where he's on the interstate running up to the admissions counselor, like bouncing over cars, flipping. Like did all that himself, and they filmed it and used it in the movie. So like, I cannot wait for some of these behind the scenes stuff to drop that I can watch when this.
I think he was even doing some flips in his like initial audition before he even got the role as Spider-Man. One unintended consequence, right, of this Spider-Man behind the scenes stuff coming out is we were talking about the vocal minority earlier. We're getting a little bit of that too. These obnoxious, like kind of like Monday morning quarterbacks. When it comes to directing, there's a screenshot that I saw that was getting passed around on Twitter earlier this weekend of when Peter walks up to the Sanctum Sanctorum to the front door. It's actually a set on a soundstage, and they built the door and the kind of the surrounding concrete, and then the face of the building is all green screen. They all added it in, and people are basically using this as an opportunity to weirdly bash the movie. Like, oh, what, you can't find a door on a street to possibly film at? Like, what? Like, they think they're trying to like cut corners by putting it in a soundstage, but then they just completely ignore the fact that the interior of the sanctum, when all the things are like covered in ice and snow and you can see all the stairs and the banisters, like that's an entire set that was built from scratch. Like, I don't know. Some people seem to think that like the entire movie that they just watched was like created in a computer from head to toe, and you're just like watching like a video game cutscene. But it's almost like this idea that they feel like they are upset because they were fooled, like by like a magic trick or something. Like, oh, ha ha ha, you didn't know that you were watching a green screen until the behind the scenes came. I honestly like don't understand it. Some people will just find anything to complain about. I think this is like an unintended consequence of being like a very, very, very successful movie. Like, people just look at this success and think it's taking something away. I don't know what's happening.
I think it's just one of those situations where, and I think we've talked about this before, this movie's not perfect, but it's damn near great for, literally doing 20 years of movies and story together, and a very emotional film. If they have to pick apart, they got a CG wall instead of a door, at least they're doing that, not trying to pick apart the movie, because I think that's the part that we enjoyed the most, right? Like, enjoy the film, enjoy that this movie shouldn't have even happened. This never would have happened any other way, and it did, and somehow came together. And I saw one thing. The director made all these Spider-Man movies, brought together all 3 generations of Spider-Man people, and only did like one interview, and that was it. I'm like, yeah, that John Watts, he's going places. Like, he's not out here like pushing himself. He's like, I'm just here to make a good movie and move on.
Yeah, he's too busy to get to the fray. And it's like this huge spectrum, right? You have people that will like bash this like box office like tentpole movie for using special effects, but then you have the other end of the spectrum of people thinking that it should have been nominated and win Academy Awards, like for Best Picture. It's like, no. The truth is in the middle, right? It's just a good movie and had a good time. Praise be it to Andrew Garfield, who I think he either tweeted or somebody quoted him from an interview recently where he said like, I'm not upset that the movie didn't get nominated. I mean, we were incredibly successful at the box office. A ton of people went and saw the movie. We broke some records. We were like the 4th biggest movie like ever made or something like that in some metric. And he's just like, yeah, I'm fine with that. I'm totally okay with that. So like, all of you Andrew Garfield stans that also think this movie should have won an Oscar, like he everything's fine. It was a movie that was successfully made. It hit all of the metrics. Everyone had a good time. Like, just chill out, man.
It's a Spider-Man movie. The villain was the Green Goblin again from 2002. I mean, I just, it feels great. It's a good movie, and but there's always a vocal minority who will find something or anything to bitch about online. So.
I'm just over here patiently waiting until it's finally streaming somewhere. Unfortunately, it's kind of hard to keep track of these contracts anymore. And I think even though Sony did make a deal with Netflix, I think this No Way Home might still be on a legacy contract for Stars. So I don't even know when this is going to be like readily available to stream. So if you actually kind of want to rewatch this movie, you're probably going to have to shell out the $20 to own it. Yeah. But I think this one would be worth it.
Yeah, I agree. There's several franchises that earn it. I think this is one. This is I'm excited for the Steelbook on this one whenever it drops next month. Speaking of Spider-Man, yesterday was the last day for season 1 of chapter 3 of Fortnite, and the tier 90 and 100 skins were both Spider-Man related, Mike. You could get a white or a red suit Spider-Man or a black suit Spider-Man, which is really cool. Got to play in Spider-Man in Fortnite. That's awesome. And then they surprisingly dropped a new teaser today. They had no warning on this, and now Doctor Strange and Spider-Man villain the Prowler, also known as Miles Morales' uncle from Into the Spider-Verse, are now characters in the Season 2 Battle Pass. So, might as well just call Fortnite a Marvel game at this point, because this is 3 Battle Passes in a row where the number 1 skin, or I guess the tier 100 skin, is a Marvel character. And there is a 5-issue comic, Fortnite crosses over with Marvel, comic coming out, I think at the end of this month or next month as well. So
I mean, that's smart marketing, right? Got to get these Fortnite kids off of the video game and reading a physical comic book. Probably wouldn't be on paper. I'm sure it'll be a digital download that they read on their phones, somehow pinching and zooming.
Well, I have the physical ones ordered to deliver to my house, but they do have the digital ones you can get as well in the Marvel Unlimited app. Or probably Comixology, but Comixology has been in the news for all the wrong reasons lately.
Oh, yeah. I saw some of that discourse a couple weeks ago.
Yeah. I mean, again, I'm a big Fortnite fan. It's how me and my friends play together. So Doctor Strange is really cool. Again, seeing Doctor Strange shooting people with guns is weird, but just gotta let it go. It's part of the game. I'm pretty sure that Moon Knight's going to be in this, like, whenever his show drops as well. But I don't think they're going to put Miss Marvel in here, Mike. So fans of that are going to have to just...
Oh, I actually didn't think about that. Yeah, it's like Marvel is okay with letting somebody like Doctor Strange shoot a gun. And I suppose Peter Parker, since his age is kind of nebulous, at least within the kind of mythology of Marvel, but like Kamala Khan, she's pretty rooted in being a minor, right?
Yeah.
Like pretty much all versions of her that have existed over the last couple of years, she is not old enough to be using a firearm.
Yeah, exactly. But they do have the Tom Holland skin with his likeness in the game, so
yeah. Well, I guess maybe they have the loophole that Tom Holland, the person, is old enough, and he's playing a character.
And he was in Uncharted, so they just reskinned it for Spider-Man.
Yeah, they just had that body scan still.
Yeah. So I fully think Moon Knight will be in here. Anybody else? They love dropping extra characters, and that's fine. Like you always say, Mike, the Fortnite art style fits almost everything perfectly. And I just feel bad. I wish there was more DC stuff in here. I know they've had Aquaman and the CW Arrow and Flash and Batman, Harley Quinn, stuff like that. So I really hope they possibly lean into some more DC stuff.
Yeah. Speaking of DC, just before I forget, and then we start talking about Marvel again, I saw on HBO Max that there's a new DC Comics show called DMZ.
Yes.
I don't believe it's attached to the superhero universe. I think it just happens to be a DC comic.
That's
but
right.
I guess it's something about like post-apocalyptic, like New York City and roaming gangs and stuff like that. I haven't watched it yet because I'm like, I don't know if I'm going to jump into a comic book show that nobody's talking about and there's no reason to watch it. But if anybody out there starts watching DMZ on HBO Max and you think it's any good, let me know and I'll give it a shot.
So I've been following the production of DMZ. I know about it. It's a DC comic book, and Rosario Dawson is the main character, or plays the main character in the show. Mm-hmm. So if you're a fan of Rosario Dawson, she's in that, and it was directed by Ava DuVernay, who was supposed to be doing the New Gods stuff at DC before.
Oh yeah, that's right.
So it's got a huge cast behind it. I don't know how, is it like 4 episodes? It's like a short series. I'm pretty sure.
No idea. I just saw the big splash page on HBO Max. The DC logo's right up there. So
yeah,
I don't know.
So it's like a limited series kind of thing. So it's not. I'm not watching it myself, but I do know a lot of people are very excited about it, and it deals with the American Second Civil War. The comic book did, and this is like the quote unquote post-apocalyptic world of what it looks like in that for Rosario Dawson's character.
Gotcha. I mean, we were talking about DC trying to get into Fortnite, and if Ava DuVernay could have got that DC property off the ground with superheroes. Maybe we could have seen Granny Goodness in Fortnite.
Oh my
That would
God.
be amazing. If Granny Goodness makes it in the Fortnite, I will play Fortnite.
Okay,
I
well,
promise
there it
you
is.
right now.
Well,
I will pay for the skin. I will give. Is it Epic? Epic Games.
Epic,
They'll get my money if I can play Granny Goodness.
Well, I think it's one of those things that like Warner Brothers holds their game license a little. I think they're probably gonna do like another Injustice or something. I don't know. They have a lot more DC other games in the works, so who knows with that. Anyway, moving along. If someone signed into Disney Plus this week, you might have noted that you had to set your parental controls on your login. And you might be like, why? Why do I have to do this? Well, that's because due to the transition of the Defenders style shows, Daredevil, Jessica Jones, Punisher, Iron Fist, and Luke Cage, moving to Disney Plus, they've implemented the parental controls to prevent your children from watching this if you choose for them not to, due to the language, sexual content, and violence involved with all of them. So I was able to log in. Actually, my wife logged in, and she's like, I set us up for the adult privileges, and I'm like, good. I need to watch these shows.
Yeah, it'd be funny. It'd be funny if she held the password for you watching mature stuff.
Yeah, I know. I was like, and then I have to go click on her. I'm actually curious if they're going to add more thumbnail icons using their images for these characters, because every time they add new properties, they update your thumbnail choices, right? Mine's currently Thanos. I don't know what yours is.
What is mine? I think mine's Wally. I think that's what it's Wally right
Wally?
now, because that was one of the earlier ones that you could pick.
Yeah. Also, unsurprisingly, they did not add these to the MCU timeline playlist. These are just extra bonus stuff, right? That they could happen. You can watch them, but they're not essential requiring for the MCU because I think
and they're
they exist outside
actually.
that.
I was surprised to see they're actively promoting these things. They're sponsored Disney Plus tweets that are telling you to go watch this stuff. So I was like, okay, surprise, all right.
Yeah, I mean, it was huge for Netflix. I think we're out of spoilers for Spider-Man, right? It's on digital. Daredevil is in Spider-Man, so
that's a light. That's not even really a story spoiler at that.
Exactly. So and it's very early in the movie. So he is in Spider-Man, so there's a lot of cross promotion going on right now. I think they're gonna push it. The other no, I just wrote it in here because I forgot about it. These are only in 1080. They will get the 4K digital improvement, so you can stream them at 4K.
Take that, Netflix. You're not going to get my 4K subscription money. I'm still streaming you at 1080 on the bargain discount dollar bin, so I'll watch this stuff with 4K now that it's on Disney Plus.
It's given me a reason. I never finished Daredevil season 3, right? Because all these the last seasons, I think of these, because we knew it was ending. I just never had the desire to go back and do it. But Daredevil season 3, I might want to go back and finish. Nothing against the quality. 13-hour-long episodes was just a slog to get through. If you remember having to do that back then, that sucked. So, we'll be doing that. And then on the flip side, there are some in the production world for TV. There are rumblings that Daredevil Reboot is coming to Marvel, and they're not being shy about it based on this. This little production weekly note here, Mike. If you pick it up,
I took a look at it. It's one of those things where you have to Command F the page and search where Daredevil is. It's just this big wall of text of all of these productions booting up. But yeah, it does really make you wonder, like, kind of what the strategy overall is with these characters. All we can do is like postulate right now, right? Like what actors are going to be able to stick around, what storylines stick around. A reboot makes sense in a way, right? Because are you really going to expect people to go back and do the work, especially as we're saying some of those seasons are like 13 episodes with some fillers, when Disney Plus is kind of getting people used to the idea of like 8 episodes, right? Of really
6 to 8,
really highly exactly. So Charlie Cox coming back, would it be kind of more like a soft reboot, kind of like when a show gets saved by another network? Like a TV show gets canceled, another network comes in and save it. Sometimes they kind of like do like a soft reboot, so you don't necessarily have to watch the season that's stuck over at another network. I don't know.
But soft reboot's fine because that's also like we know Daredevil's origin, right? We know about him, so we can just pick up where he is and kind of move forward. Even that's like a great thing.
And do they, how overt are they about it, right? Do they overtly try to let the audience know that this is not the same Daredevil, this is a variant, or do they want to keep all of his like same friends and past and just kind of hint to it and then just kind of like, oh, okay.
We're kind of already in that world because, right, like Charlie Cox came back as Matt Murdock in Spider-Man. They didn't tell us what he is. He's there, and he's a really good lawyer. And then a Hawkeye with the Kingpin. They didn't really tell us. They just put him in there. Same actor, like a little bit of a bigger stature, a little more powerful, but like I don't think they need to handhold us through a lot of this stuff. I think we'll be fine. A lot of viewers are probably fine watching it and getting on, but like, I didn't have Daredevil show on my bingo card, Mike, for Disney Plus. Yeah. I should have, but like I thought he was just going to be a side character like Echo or something else, like not get his own like show. But that's fine. That's good. And
it does kind of seem like, we're always trying to like high mind this, like, really trying to see the math. But it seems like the obvious answer is almost always the right answer, right? They got these shows back from Netflix. Let's put them on our platform and promote them because they were good shows. That's all we're really trying to do at the end of the day is get people to watch content. And then also the most critically kind of acclaimed, most watched, most popular out of all these ones were Daredevil. Everybody on the internet was clamoring for more Daredevil and Charlie Cox. Everybody was happy to see him in the Spider-Man movie. Let's just keep making more of it. It all makes sense, right? Tweak it a little bit so it makes sense in our universe, and then we'll keep pushing forward. So, it seems like, will we kind of see like side characters come back, like, like Hellcat or Shades or anything like that from Luke Cage? I don't know. Maybe not likely, but it really seemed like Charlie Cox is going to be getting more work as Daredevil.
Yeah, and he seems really, really cool with it. So that's awesome. To me, it's just one of those things where I, like you said, we like to imagine they have a big like dry erase board with all the stuff playing out for the future, but like someone recently said they don't. They just kind of react to like, what are people saying and what are they doing, and that's where we're kind of going to go with it. And I think Daredevil is one of those things that's always in the zeitgeist. It was popular when it was on Netflix. They put him in a scene in Spider-Man and it blew up, right? Like I remember cheering in my theater when he was in there. So like this is like one of the things like, oh, okay, we've got a pretty good pulse for this, so people want to see it. Let's make something out of it. They definitely, I don't think they had it planned a year ago that they were going to do something. So that's fine. It's cool with me. Moon Knight is almost upon us, right? It's coming out at the end of this month. But the first 4 episodes have been sent to reviewer outlets. So people have been saying that it's unlike anything they've ever seen, and that's what they've said. So I think maybe there's like some required statements they have to say for these things, because it seemed like it was like the same sentence repurposed over and over again. And I'm like, yeah, we know. Everyone says this is like unlike anything we've ever seen every time something comes out. It doesn't tell me what the show is or what you think of it. So I'm waiting for the review embargo to kind of drop, but very, very excited for the show to hit not this Wednesday, 2 Wednesdays from now. 10 days, I think they said.
Yeah, you're going to have to hold out a little bit longer. I keep forgetting that like the end of March is when some of this like premium content we've been waiting for a while to drop. Yeah. So, yeah, I mean, if they're letting the first 4 episodes out early, it makes me think that the first 4 episodes is how long it really takes, right, to get an idea. Yeah. I don't know if we're getting 2 episodes on that first Wednesday.
It's just it's just one, I'm pretty sure.
Okay, so I'm curious, like, what happens in the 4th episode, right?
Right.
What is it that we're looking for there?
What reveal do we get by the 4th episode? Probably who Ethan Hawke's character is, or like what he's really doing.
Yeah, maybe. So I guess we'll have to wait until the end of April to find out.
That's true. It'll be the end of April, and it'll kick right off into Obi-Wan and Doctor Strange, which is gonna be fantastic. It's gonna be a really good May this year. The other thing with Moon Knight is. With it coming out on those, I think they said the episodes are like average of 50 minutes every episode, without credits. So, or maybe with credits. I mean, it's 45 to 50. Prepare that for the first 4 episodes, Mike. So, they're being very consistent with their episode length on these going forward. Miss Marvel dropped a surprisingly Teaser trailer for us this week. I didn't expect this to come out this week. We got a poster on Monday, right? And then we were like, oh, there's a poster. There's got to be a trailer soon. And then like 30 minutes later, like, oh, here's your trailer, folks. Good job. Here he is. Watch your Miss Marvel teaser, which at the end of it, the whole point of it is it confirms a June 8th release date, which I reported on last week. So I'm very happy that we got really close on that one and nailed it. Mm-hmm. So this trailer gives us a little bit of Kamala's powers, but I would say the use of Blinding Lights is a very infectious song in this. And then someone said it's got a Lizzie McGuire effect at the beginning, right? Like literally she's writing notes, drawing things, living in a fantasy world, kind of a little bit turning red, if you ask me, right? Like some of the stuff going on there. And then there's writing and drawings on the screen, like, you know, notations of a la Lizzie McGuire. Or even like, you know, some of the more artistic sections of Scott Pilgrim.
Yeah,
really fun. I thought.
Yeah, I kind of got the vibe, at least from like that first kind of like 50 seconds of the trailer, that maybe that stuff is not actually appearing in the show at all. It kind of got the vibe of, oh, this is just kind of like promotional vibes, right?
Yeah.
There's like a shot at the very beginning where you see like a profile of the side of her face, and then kind of like these thought bubbles appear above her head. And like the composition of the frame's really weird because there's not a lot of room at the top of her head where the thought bubbles show up. So it really just kind of looks like somebody took footage and then drew on top of it for the trailer. So, I mean, yeah, I suppose this stuff could be within the final version of the show, but it seems like we would have seen more of that throughout the trailer. So my guess is that's just kind of like a marketing gimmick. But at the beginning, I got vibes of like high school Netflix properties, right? There's a lot of kind of like Netflix, popular Netflix properties that are either movies or TV shows that are kind of striking this vibe of kind of like, you know, somebody in their adolescence, you know, crushing on a guy and stuff like that. So those are the vibes I'm getting at the beginning of the trailer.
Yeah. Yeah, it's definitely one of those, like, you know, she brings it up, like, you know, she wants to be a superhero. She idolizes them. She wants to go to Avengers Con. And then, you know, she brings up a point saying, you know, the superheroes are not, you know, brown girls from Jersey City, which I think is going to be a very underlying theme here. Like, you know, she is, you know, I believe, you know, a Muslim family, you know, minority, gets powers in this and has to be a superhero. So it's going to be definitely her fighting herself, you know, through her religion and her, you know, young age, really. Like, right, you know, this is about the age, I guess, Peter Parker would have got his Spider-Man abilities in the first movie, right? Around Civil War, a little before Civil War. And she obviously idolizes Captain Marvel the most here. But I'm going to say, you know, one of the interesting things here is we find her abilities seem to maybe come not from being an Inhuman, but rather from what appear to be some sort of quantum bands or, like, you know, bracelets or bracers that she gets out of a box in an attic in this trailer, which a lot of diehard Miss Marvel fans might be upset about, but, you know, as someone who is an Inhuman fan of the comic books, I understand they've got to make some concessions here and do something different. So to me, it didn't bother me. I'd love to see the whole stuff about it, but I'm not upset. But at the same time, we don't see a lot of her powers either.
Yeah, the whole. So yeah, that's the kind of the angle that I'm most interested in, is the power set here, right? Yeah. So you kind of have her powers at face value, and then the origin of the powers. I think changing origin stories are okay when you're adapting something to like a cinematic universe, right? Because you're trying to fit a new type of world. You know, are we even ever going to see Inhumans in the MCU? Who knows? Do we want to bring them up just so you can adapt this one character? Probably not the best idea. Okay, so now what's the most important part of the character? Well, it's because she feels like an outsider. You know, she's aging. She has like this affinity for a very particular character. Okay, well, we can kind of keep all of that stuff. So now let's start talking about the power set. And we do end up having like these crystal powers, which we talked about, you know, in the past few weeks. But if you're doing some like freeze framing, if you're going frame by frame through this trailer, there is legitimate elongation to the limbs on some effects. Now, like, I could see like a crystal fist right, coming out of these bracers, and then the crystal effect stretches itself, right? Almost kind of like Green Lantern style, if you will. Like, okay, I could see that, but when she's like jumping from like building to building, like visually her limbs are stretching. So
Yeah.
I'm trying to figure out, okay, that's still cool, right? I like that look and ability. So I'm trying to think, okay, what's going on here? Is like, are the quantum bands like stretching her particles in her body? So like maybe she won't quite get to the visual impact of what Mr. Fantastic might be able to do eventually down the line when they adapt that movie. So... And maybe it's a thing where once she learns her power set a little bit more, maybe she meets Mr. Fantastic at some point in time and they vibe out together and they start doing very similar like combat together. That could be kind of cool. So I do have to say, like, that was probably my favorite part about the trailers. Like, oh, we do kind of get to see some weird body stretching. It doesn't seem like they're going to quite get to what she gets to when she first gets her powers in the comic books, but there at least seems to be a spirit of that in this trailer.
At about 125, she punches somebody with a huge fist, right? We've looked at that. And if you look in the crystal, when she punches, it looks like her arm is literally enlarged inside the crystal shell. So it's got very, very like a skin tone. So I'm theorizing here, she has the powers, but they've given her like an energy shell, an energy crystal, energy layer, because later on she's also stopping bullets with this, right? If she was just able to embiggen, that's still flesh. She can't do anything. Like, she can still get shot. She can still, be damaged from that. So maybe this is a way to, like you said, differentiate the Mr. Fantastic powers while also taking her up to a cosmic level, right? Like, if something like she can stretch, she can change her body, but also she's got a little extra layer of protection in her because that's what she needs in some situations.
I will agree, though. I think I did see some legitimate criticism when it came to the adaptation of this, though, right? Because some fans of the comic books were saying, well, her ability to not kind of remove her new power set really kind of speaks to kind of what she's trapped in, right? As like an adolescent who grows up and changes and is not familiar with her body. When she gets these powers in the comic books and she becomes an Inhuman, she can't control what she looks like or how she's morphing or how she's changing. And, she's hiding in like, behind dumpsters and stuff in alleys because she doesn't want to be seen and stuff like that. So, I don't think, unless these bands that go on her wrist like physically can't be removed, you're kind of telling a slightly different story. But I'm sure that they will lean into the fact that that she's different. She's not like all of the other heroes that she's seen on the big screen. I'm really curious. This might be minor, but I'm really curious how they explain her being a big fan of Captain Marvel, because from what we've seen in the MCU, it doesn't look like she's made big, broad cultural kind of pop culture impact, right? I could see, we've seen Captain America everywhere. He's in, gymnasium, gym class VHS tapes that they watch, right? Of like how to be a good student. But like Captain Marvel, like she showed up from space like one time, and I'm sure like they caught her on like some like random UFO like YouTube clip, flying through one of those Thanos ships, right? But like, how does she become so infatuated with her? That's what I'm. It's a small minor point, but I am kind of curious how they play that out.
She didn't get blipped, so she was on Earth for those 5 years. Like, she just went out to space to help police. Remember, because she shows up literally at the beginning of the blip. That's why they find the beeper with Nick Fury. So my guess is the Avengers that were run by Black Widow. She's one of them. They probably know who she is. Also, how far after the blip is this show taking place? And the end of Shang-Chi shows, again, Brie Larson was Captain Marvel, was in there. So, where is she at? Has she been on Earth? Is she taking a bigger role on Earth now that, the blip is over, kind of thing? I don't know.
Did one of her family members get blipped, which makes them very kind of apprehensive of all the superhero-ness because look at the consequences it solved.
There's a lot of opportunities to show where Captain Marvel has been and what she's been doing, because she was there for the 5 years. But there's a lot to kind of see here, and kind of go along with that. So I'm thrilled. This does not offend me, Mike, as I like to say. I would like to see more. We probably will get some right after Moon Knight wraps up, we'll probably get the bigger trailer with that.
I wouldn't say I'm exactly hyped, but I felt like it could have gone a lot worse.
It could have been so much worse. Good Lord. So, yeah, I agree. So, June 8th, right around the corner. We don't have to wait, but that just means She-Hulk is pushed back a little bit more. So, we don't get to watch it till probably maybe the fall, right, for that. Moving along, Andor, what we're so excited for. We got to get it out of the way. It's going to happen. Summer 2022 rumored, possibly right after Miss Marvel, around August for this one, July or August. So we all know Obi-Wan is Kenobi. That's the show we're waiting on. Andor's next. After that's what, Mando season 3. Is there anything else in production that we know of? Is the Ahsoka show filming yet? Maybe, possibly.
Yeah, I don't know. Like, how are they still? Do they have to build a couple of these volumes? You know, their sign-in sheets. Like, no.
Yeah.
Andor's filming today, not the Book of Boba
Well,
Fett.
Andor filmed in England on a real set. They didn't use a volume for Andor. Remember that video they showed us of like the towns and cities they built are back.
Oh yeah, that's right.
So, but yeah, I don't know what's next. They need to let us know, because we're getting through some, again, the Star Wars stuff we like, the Star Wars stuff we're not thrilled for. Watch us love Andor. Watch this be a really good show, by the way.
No. What would be really, really funny, right, is I can't think of anything more far removed from the fandom than Andor, right? You know, we all went back to watch Book of Boba Fett, and it kind of felt like, you know, DLC for a video game, right? Oh, let's get a little bit of background on Boba. I mean, Andor is even more like that. Are we going to get to episode 5 of Andor, and it's more like the Mandalorian shows up, and there's more Mandalorian show?
Well, since Andor is before episode 1, I would totally see the Rebels characters showing up here, like Star Wars Rebels, which takes place at the same time, like crossing over.
I mean, what if they do like an earlier, like, teenage version? Yeah. I think that would be around the time of, like, would Mando be about a teenager during like the Andor show? Maybe
that'd be good. That'd be pushing it.
Maybe we see like a proto Mandalorian with like maybe some rougher armor. Yeah. Like it just seems like, is that going to be a pattern they establish? Yeah. Oh, don't worry. Whenever we give you like a Star Wars TV show where you're not too hyped about it, just hold on. Once episode 4 or 5 rolls around, we'll give you something that you're actually waiting for.
Obi-Wan is the only person I think they could probably put in there, like we talked about, and be, you know, in the same reign. I don't know. Dave Filoni and Jon Favreau aren't attached to Andor, are they? Like, I feel like it's totally separate from everything else. Like, is what it feels like to me.
So we're gonna find out. That's for sure.
Yeah, it's gonna happen. We just gotta. I'm more excited for Andor than Morbius, because Star Wars is Star Wars. But like, just we gotta suck it and get through it. So later this summer. Speaking of the Mandalorian, they've added Christopher Lloyd of Back to the Future fame as the season 3. I forget this guy's still around, simply because he already looked so old in the 80s for Back to the Future. But he's out here, he's acting, doing things. So literally is now a man DeLorean, because, you know, the Back to the Future car's a DeLorean, right?
Oh, you're really waiting to use that one, weren't you?
I used it yesterday, tested out on an audience first, got some feedback, and they're like, yeah, that's pretty good. I'm like, all right, I'll roll with it on the podcast.
Oh, boy. Christopher Lloyd's great. I mean, he's a childhood icon for me. I haven't really seen him in much outside of the Back to the Future franchise. So
Who Framed Roger Rabbit?
Well, I'm like saying like post like 80s, you know.
Like recently, I believe he was in the what's that black and white movie franchise? Sin City. I think he was in Sin City 2.
Oh, was he? Oh, well, I never saw Sin City 2.
Yeah.
But yeah, it'll be great to see Christopher Lloyd come back.
Yeah. Do you think he's playing like an Imperial officer of some kind?
Ooh, that'd be cool to see him play like a villain.
Yeah. Yeah. I think he'd make a hell of an Imperial officer kind of role. So maybe he's a villain in this one, like a guest shooter kind of. Guest villain.
I wonder if that's like a fan casting, right? You know, Dave Filoni grew up with the Back to the Future movies, loved Christopher Lloyd. And it's like, oh yeah, I can just put him in my thing. Like I can just do that.
It's not. Watch him. He's like, I don't care about Back to the Future. I don't care about this. I loved you as Uncle Fester in those Addams Family movies.
Yeah, Uncle Fester.
Let's go do that. So, yep, that'll be coming up probably this holiday. About the time I need to renew my Disney Plus, because my 3 years will run up.
Oh yeah.
So. Gotta look forward to that. Anyway, The Batman is coming to HBO Max on April 19th as confirmed by HBO Max or Warner Brothers CEO. So this is one of the first movies to get the 45-day theatrical release window before going to streaming. That's really, really soon. Like, Spider-Man's not even going to be out on physical, I think, by that point, or it's just hitting Blu-ray. So, like, the fact if you didn't catch Spider-Man or Batman in theaters, you can watch the full quality version of HBO Max in less than, as of today, it's less than a month from today. So that's really cool. I think that's a big win for everybody, Mike. We can go back and revisit the Batman, see if there's any riddles we missed along the way.
The Robert Pattinson Batman stans will be very happy.
Yeah, it's a dark movie though. Dark movie. Harley Quinn is getting a season 3 on HBO Max, right? The animated show. And this week it was confirmed James Gunn will get a cameo finally in season 3.
His voice or like his persona?
I think both. I think like he's playing James Gunn in the Harley Quinn thing.
I feel like if I was James Gunn, I would want somebody to draw me into the show, and then it would probably be fun to be like horrifically maimed by a character in the show. That would be fun, like get pushed off a bridge or sliced in half or something like that. If it was me, that's what I would want.
Yeah, well, he did have King Shark in his movie, and there's King Shark in the show as a main character.
Yeah, getting eaten by a shark, that'd be cool.
Yeah. Or maybe they have to. I don't know if he's going to be in the whole episode. Would you want to see him as like, we have to go get James Gunn, or we have to go save him, or we have to go kill him as an episode, or is it just like a it feels like 5-minute cameo? What do you think?
It feels like a gag to me, right? Yeah. Almost kind of like, when like the Animaniacs would like cut away to like a random celebrity in their show, and then they'd like hit him with a frying pan, and then the gag would be over. That's probably what I feel like would be best.
Yeah. It's just short and sweet, but as we talked about with John Watts not really doing any interviews, James Gunn's the other side where he's always on social media, always talking about the movies he's working on. So, I would not be surprised. He is a larger-than-life personality in the superhero world with Guardians and the Suicide Squad and Peacemaker. So, good for him. This week on Paramount Plus, Mike, Halo, the TV show, finally debuts. It doesn't feel like it's this week. It feels surreal that it's coming out this week.
Because this is like a million years in the making, right? I mean, I know that there's been live action adaptations of this universe done before, but it's never been on an official kind of like television feature level before. So
yeah, Steven Spielberg has been talking about this, I think, since 2014 at least, when they announced it. It was like supposed to be on Stars at one point, and then Paramount Plus took it over recently. We got a little bit of a last minute trailer to take a look at, Mike, and you got to watch this. You're a little less removed here. What do you think about this last trailer? Is it got you a little hyped, or?
I mean, it's definitely leaning more into the emotion, right? I feel like Halo is one of those things now. It's kind of like when they adapted like Ghost in the Shell or more kind of like iconic sci-fi properties. Like, even though Halo seems modern kind of in our heads because it's like a video game, it's the story is relatively old to us, right? I feel like we've treaded this ground on television and in movies already, so I'm really curious what fresh perspective they're going to take, right? Because we can all imagine what the TV show looks like in our heads, right? We've played the games, we've seen the shorts, we've seen like very well-crafted cutscenes in action. So I'm just curious from a filmmaking point of view, how are they going to make this a unique experience? And honestly, that's going to have to come, I think it's going to come down like to the narrative, right? How we're going to have like great acting, awesome characters, and they featured a lot more characters in this trailer, so that's a good sign.
So one of the other things is this does not take place in the video game timeline. They've crafted what they call the silver timeline, where this TV show borrows core elements of the Halo universe, especially the idea of the Halo thing, the Master Chief, the Spartans, the aliens, but it is not a retelling of things you've seen in the games at this point already. So I think you like you said, they had to there are the people on the internet who probably be vocally upset that it's not a one for one of the video games, but to tell a good story you have to adapt it for your medium. And since this is not a video game, it is a TV series, they've had to change it. Now I'm excited to kind of see what those changes are, because I'm very entrenched in the Halo lore and the characters. And, I've seen these characters before. I think there's a cool shot of the you remember in the Let Go the hunters in the game, the big tank dudes. Well, those are comprised of little bitty worms together. Like their bodies are like a mass colony of like worms, and you see this in this trailer, like a lady walking through is like the worms are destroying everybody around her, right, kind of thing, which was a cool shot. So I know the characters and the villains will be in here. I believe we even saw like a prophet, one of the prophets from Halo 2 in here. So it's great. I'm glad it's not a 1-for-1 because we've already played the games. So this is high on my list this week. I renewed my Paramount Plus for 1 year, commercial free because of this show, Mike. I'm buying in on a show I want to see. So hopefully I enjoy it.
Yeah, I'll be keeping an eye on two things. The first thing I'll be keeping an eye on is kind of like what's the pop culture breakthrough when the show finally premieres. Like Halo's a very well-known property, right? But are you going to be seeing, is the show going to be trending on Twitter? Are you going to be seeing your friends talking about it? Are you going to see people recommend the show because it's doing such a good job, right? So I want to see if it has that pop culture effect, because Paramount Plus needs that. They need a big hit, and I'm sure they spent a lot of money on this, not just making it, but also like, getting the rights to the IP.
I said they bought it from Stars, so my guess it wasn't cheap because the Stars needed it more than probably they did.
Yeah, exactly. So I'm looking to see how effective it is at breaking through. And then also, I was telling Chris at the top of the show before we started recording, I have the ad supported version of Paramount Plus, which is riddled with long ad breaks, way longer than Peacock's ad supported version. So I'm curious if they're going to use this as a strategy and like crank back those ads, because they know that they're going to be getting a lot of new subscribers when the Halo show drops, and they don't want to freak them out with too many ads, even on the ad-supported tier. So I'm going to check it out at least on my Paramount ad version, and I'll report back if you can kind of manage to get through an episode with a couple ads here or there. But man, sometimes you'll be watching something and it's just like, 180 seconds, and we'll get back to your show, and it's like, no. So I don't want to do that for Halo. So we'll see how it goes.
Mike hates commercials. That much we do know. I will say two things. I don't know if this is all dropping at once or if it's weekly. So we'll find that out more later this week. And then Paramount Plus, they've been promising that Frasier reunion for a while. We've not heard anything, or I guess revival. But earlier today, this affects your household, Mike. All 180 episodes of I Love Lucy were put on Paramount Plus. So it's like the only home you can stream them all in one place. So I know. I believe. Correct me. Is your wife's a I Love Lucy fan? Is that?
Yeah, she's got the whole box set somewhere. It's like a really large. It's very cumbersome. So I wouldn't be mad if we could just stream it.
Yeah, a lot of older shows are doing that. That's great. So anyway, Paramount Plus Halo this week, March 24th, which would be, I believe, Thursday. So that's a interesting day to do that. We'll report back next week. Lastly, I thought these were Millerverse properties. These are not Millerverse properties. These are actually Mark Miller. These are Mark Waid properties. Irredeemable and Incorruptible Limited. These were comic series. They weren't long runs. They were like 6 issues, I believe, each or around that thing that are tied together. Mark Waid wrote the series. It is being turned into a movie at Netflix. So there was an Irredeemable comic series and Incorruptible comic series. These are Irredeemable is the villain who has to turn good because the hero is going evil, and then Incorruptible is the opposite side, the hero who's going evil along his story. So like it tells each side of the story, which is an interesting I guess story. But like with the Millerverse franchise getting kind of killed off pretty quickly with the what was that show they did there?
Jupiter or something.
Yeah, Jupiter's Legacy. Do you think Netflix is just trying, a shotgun approach, trying to get anything they can, or what do you think is going on here?
I don't know. It makes me wonder if this is like, I don't want to say like a legacy deal, like when they were doing a lot of these kind of like oddball comic book deals, but I mean like Mark Waid, he's well known in the comic book world as like being a writer, right? So I would imagine these are his own properties that he has created and sold the IP off to Netflix. I mean, I'm sure the stories are great, right? But, part of the business side of things that Netflix is trying to do is get IP that can kind of hit the ground running, right? Oh, we're going to make this movie, and there's going to be at least a subset of fans that will get it off the ground and get it out there into the world. I've never even heard about these things before. It doesn't mean that they're good or bad. It just means I've never heard about them. So they already got some legwork to do for even me, who's a nerd.
Yeah. I was wrong. It's one of them has 37 issues, one has 30. I was thinking of they're collected in 6 volumes, so I apologize.
I would say there's an advantage, though, if they're making a movie out of it and not a series, because a series, involves a lot of dedication and time to the story. But if they could just make a really solid, sub 2-hour film that just really gets under people's clause, and they start recommending it and saying oh, this is great superhero stuff right here, maybe that's the approach to go. I don't know if you could possibly have condensed Jupiter's Legacy into a movie, but it seems like probably more people maybe would have watched it if it was, instead of 10 plus hours.
Quit giving Adam Sandler 8 movie deals over there and turn these into 3 or 4 movie deals.
Yeah, I guess we shall see. We'll see if it works. There was a Vulture article that I read just this week about the demise of the Babysitters Club TV show. And you might think, well, Mike, why the hell are you talking about the Babysitters Club TV show? Well, my wife read the books growing up, so she was out there watching the show on Netflix, and it was canceled before it got its 3rd season. But it's really surprising because they were interviewing the showrunner, and they said I was giving them everything that they wanted. They were giving me metrics back. I was hitting the metrics, they got everything that they wanted, but I guess they just weren't quite getting the big viral hit that they wanted from something like Babysitter's Club. And on top of that, if you go on Rotten Tomatoes and you kind of filter best reviewed Netflix TV shows, Babysitter's Club is literally number 1. It's the best reviewed Netflix original series out there. And there's a lot of Netflix series out there. So yeah, at Netflix, even if you hit it out of the park critically, that's not always going to get you more. It's a really weird marketplace out there on Netflix. You just don't know what's going to pop off. So
yeah.
It's a coin flip.
They're trying everything they can out there, and like you said, with the Adam Project, some things can be good, and then some things can just be okay. So they have more insight into that stuff than we do. But I was hoping to see more Millerverse stuff, but I guess we'll go with Mark Waid verse, because I like Mark Waid. Mark Waid done some really really good books along the way. Well, Mike, that is the episode for this week. If people want to know what you're up to, what you're doing, where can they find you at?
Oh, they can find me at Mike Royer Design on Instagram, Twitter, and TikTok. And you can read my webcomics at pickledcomics.com. Chris, if people want to catch up with you, where can they find you?
You can find me on Twitter, Valdan, Valdan, or Instagram, Valdan87. And I apologize for all the coughing and occasional sniffling I did on the episode today. People, thank you for bearing with me while my allergies clear up as all the trees try to kill me this week. People know more about the show, what we're doing. I believe our next review episode would be Morbius here in a couple weeks. Mike, where can they find everything and get ready to listen to that gem of a treat?
Yeah. Well, if you want to find the headquarters for Superhero Slate, I guarantee you do not have to vault a Tesla over a hill in Los Angeles to find our headquarters. We are simply at superheroslate.com. That is the best place to find all the avenues we host our show and get our awesome show notes. So if you want to see any of the things we talked about in this week's episode that have nice little links, we got that on our show notes. We're on Apple Podcasts, but I'm sure there's podcasts on Apple Plus. You can find us on YouTube, Spotify, wherever else you love to listen to fine podcasts. Like us on Facebook, follow us on Twitter and Instagram. Get merch at superheroslate.com/store. Yeah, go on Twitter. Search Tesla jump. There's this insane video of this Tesla jumping this hill and being ridiculous and almost blowing their car up.
It is wild.
There's
so many videos. How many angles do we find of it? Like 10 people were filming it.
It's insane. It's not the parental guidance suggested. I don't know. It's not for everybody. Don't be an idiot and start driving your $120,000 car over ramps. But it It was crazy. We watched it just before we started recording the show,
yeah.
and I've been thinking about it the entire episode. So go watch that. So much. Well, our friend of the show, Quentin, had to FaceTime us before we recorded because we were talking about it. So that's what we really should have been talking about the whole episode. It's just one bullet point of this Tesla yeeting itself over a hill.
We could have stopped, rewound, gone through this footage so many times.
But if you want to be a super fan like that super jump, all you got to do is share the show with a friend, share the show with a buddy, and we will be here every week, folks.
That's right. We'll see you guys next week.
Bye.
Thanks for listening, and don't forget to subscribe.